Hello, my name is Logan Wells, and I work with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Forest Products team out of Hayward, Wisconsin. And today I'm going to do a presentation called Logs to Lumber. This presentation was built in partnership with stakeholders from the hardwood lumber industry to help students better understand the process of turning our forest resources into finished products. So without further ado, here we go. So our roadmap for the day. We're going to start with a high-level overview of Wisconsin's forests to just better understand our resources here in Wisconsin and how that shapes our industry. Next, we'll go into the raw materials that our sawmills buy and then the products that they turn those raw materials into. And then finally, we'll go into the specific equipment, jobs, and processes that go into making those different products. Alrighty, so our first question, Wisconsin's forests, what percent of our total forested volume is composed of hardwood species like oaks and maples versus softwood species, the conifers or evergreens like pines, spruce, and firs? Do we have more softwoods or more hardwoods, do you think, as a total volume? That's kind of a tricky question because it can change based on your specific location in the state. Certain counties might have more pine and softwoods than others, or different regions. But in general, across the whole state, 72% of our forest resources, our forested volume, is composed of hardwood species. Again, the oaks and maples. And only 28% is our softwood species. And this is important because our resource and the types of trees we grow here really dictate what types of finished products we can create. And our industry reflects this in that most of our companies are working with the hardwood resource, which is not quite 3/4 of our total forest resources, but we do have some softwood lumber companies and sawmills in the state as well. The next key point to really drive home about Wisconsin's forests and how they're connected into industry is that forest management includes logging. That's a really important point because logging and harvesting trees is how we manage our forest. That's our tool that we use to help reset the clock on our forest, to help regenerate young forests, but then also to clean out some of the diseased and dying trees that need to be harvested from a health standpoint, as well as an economic maturity standpoint. We use logging as our main tool for forest management. On the flip side, another huge benefit is that logging provides hundreds of wood products that we use every single day. So think about all the forest products from our furniture and our homes to toilet paper, as well as paper plates. These are things that we might take for granted, but if we didn't have logging and harvesting trees, we would not be able to have them. Our final question on Wisconsin's forests is, how are markets for forest products connected to natural resource management? This is a deep question, and the answer lies at the heart of sustainable forestry. I'm sure many of us have heard of ecosystems being described as a web, where all of the insects, birds, and animals are connected to not only each other, but also the habitats where they live. This includes the plants, trees, forest types, as well as the climate that supports those landscapes. The web extends even further and includes our society, including our homes and our businesses. At the very center of this web, though, is each of us as consumers. We have an impact on this entire web through the choices that we make. Everything from the foods that we choose to eat, how we heat our homes in the wintertime, and what types of furniture we buy, all have an impact on this web, whether we realize it or not. Perhaps some of us have heard of the 3 pillars of sustainability. In order for something to truly be sustainable, 3 requirements must be met. The first pillar is a social standard. Basically, we as people and a society acknowledge that something must be morally and ethically sound in order for it to be sustainable in the long term. The second pillar of sustainability is an environmental standard. This is probably what comes to mind first and foremost when we think about sustainability, but any decision or choice that we make today cannot jeopardize the health of our future environment. If it does, then it's not a sustainable option in the long term. The third and final pillar of sustainability is an economic standard or requirement. In order for something to be sustainable, it must be profitable or make sense economically. This pillar can often be forgotten, but it is really important because if there is no profit and the numbers don't add up, it's not going to be a sustainable option in the long term. So again, these are the three pillars of sustainability: the social pillar, environmental, and economic. Without all three of these pillars, any choice or option is not truly sustainable in the long term. They all must be sound. Some people might have heard of them referred to as the 3 Ps of sustainability, where the social is people, environmental is planet, and the economic is profit. Either way, you need to have all three in order for something to truly be sustainable. So going back to our original question, how are markets for forest products connected to forest management? The answer is that the forest product markets provide the profit needed to strengthen the economic pillar of sustainable forestry. Without harvesting trees and generating that revenue, you're not going to have the incentive to continue forest management and keep forests healthy in the long term. And this is where it all comes back to each of us as consumers, because when we buy and use forest products, we are strengthening the economic pillar of sustainable forest management. This means that when you buy a Wisconsin-grown wooden cutting board instead of a bamboo cutting board, you are supporting our local forest management and ensuring that economic pillar of sustainable forestry in Wisconsin. So that's our overview of Wisconsin's forests and concludes the first video clip in this presentation. Here are a couple quick questions just to review this first section. Go ahead and jot them down on a scratch sheet of paper or in a Word doc, and then you can move on to the next video.